Hey, what is going on, guys? It's Moto. In today's video, we are going to be taking a ride on the 2022 Honda XR650L. So guys, here she is, the 2022 XR650L. This bike is an absolute iconic machine. It's been around since 1993 and it has stood the test of time and it is here today and is still being made by Honda. The only changes done to this year's motorcycle are the colors. Everything else is exactly the same from the previous year's model. As you can tell, it now has the new black rims as well as the white plastics and white tank with the new retro design here. I think that looks absolutely sweet. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section below, but I love the black and white contrast on this motorcycle. Don't get me wrong, Honda is definitely a red company. You know, everyone thinks of Honda, they think red. That being said, I do kind of like how they switched it up for this year. It still has the touches of red here and there, but it looks absolutely sweet. Definitely retro, and it really fits in my opinion. So it's been raining the last couple days here. I just picked this up a week ago. I have about 170 miles on it, so I wanted to get some miles in before I did this review. But luckily it's not raining yet. It is a little bit overcast, but hopefully we can get out and do a nice little ride for you guys. The only modification I've done to this bike is the tail tidy. As you guys know, if you follow my channel, the thing I love doing most on almost every motorcycle is a tail tidy, especially with the older bikes, the older styled bikes. These bikes need the tail tidy. That is a UFO Plastics XR600R fender. You can also just do the light itself from WPS. It looks a little different than that light that's on this one, but it's basically the same thing. So it's really personal preference. I want to say this one was like 60 bucks and then the light itself is like 20. But check out my video on that if you haven't seen that already. But yeah, I mean, I have taken off the passenger foot pegs. I have taken off the chain guard. Just a couple little things here and there. I have plenty of modifications to come for this motorcycle, so definitely stay tuned if you're into this bike. But yeah, I think this thing is absolutely sweet. You know, some people don't like the old style, and I get it. You know, the new bikes are sweet, but there's something to be said about this retro styling in my opinion. I also do like that it has a carburetor. I know a lot of people also don't like that, but you know, there's not many bikes on the market nowadays that have the simplicity and reliability of a machine like this. And I think that's kind of the appeal in most people's eyes, is that it is simple, it's so easy to fix, and it's very reliable. Like I said, this bike has been around since 1993, so it stood the test of time. People are clearly buying it, they're loving it, and there's so many parts for this bike, there's so many mods, so you can really let your imagination run wild with this motorcycle, and that's just some of the reasons why I love it. So approaching this bike, you will notice that it is quite tall. It's not absolutely, you know, unbearable, but it's just something to get used to. And if you're a new rider, it may be something that's a little bit intimidating, but, you know, once you're on the machine, you don't really notice how tall it is. So if you're anything like me, when you're purchasing a machine, you want to see everything there is to know about it. So here is the key that you will get. Classic Honda mechanical key there. You have three positions. You have the off, you have the on, as well as the push lock. So that is a nice feature that Honda has on this motorcycle. Taking a look at the dash, it is as simple as it's going to get, maybe with the exception of a TW200, but you have your blinker, your high beam, your neutral light, as well as your kickstand light, which lets you know your kickstand is down, which I thought that was kind of interesting for this this older bike, and as well as your speedometer, as well as your trip. Taking a look at the machine, you also have a little bag here, which I actually have a Garmin GPS in right now. Your standard floppy retro blinkers, as well as your high, low beam, turn signals, your horn, engine kill switch over here on the right hand side, and then your push to start. All right, so here I am on the motorcycle, and let's take it for a ride. I've got the fuel on because this does have a petcock. Everything's ready to go. Starts right up. Gotta love that 650, 644 I believe, but this thing is an absolute beast. It's actually got a really, really good engine in it. It's not too powerful by any means, but it's definitely got enough torque, and it's a really playful motorcycle. So the 2022 XR650L, guys, this bike has been awesome so far. If you have a 21 model or a 2020 or anything you know, really at all. It's basically going to be the same as this model, once again with the exception of the colors. But this bike is a blast to ride. 5 gears, beautiful bridge here in New York. This is a reservoir, and you can actually, I don't know if you could see, but you could see through the bridge. There is water right below me, so for people that don't like heights, it may not be for you. The reason I like coming over here is because there is a nice gravel road over here that runs alongside the reservoir, and it's a blast to ride on. It's a nice hiking and walking trail as well. So if you're in the area, you've probably been here. But so guys, I picked this motorcycle up at Honda Virginia Beach. I mentioned them in the other video, but they are absolutely phenomenal. So if you are in the area, definitely check them out. We'll go through some puddles. Fun little road here. But yeah, so Honda Virginia Beach is about 7.5 hours away from me. So I think that really tells how much I wanted this motorcycle. First of all, beautiful ride. If you've ever been in that area, it's absolutely gorgeous, and I highly recommend you check it out. Taking the bike home, it fit right in the back of the F-150. And, you know, overall, I had a great experience with the dealership, and I couldn't be happier with the product so far. So I don't know if you guys will be able to hear that on camera. Once again, the bike is completely stock, but it's got that nice grunty noise to it. It's got a lot of low-end torque here, and it's a really fun engine. Hitting some gravel here. This bike does phenomenal on the gravel. The tires are pretty good. I haven't really had so much experience with dual sport tires. You know, I don't really pay attention to that too much. I have had the CRF450RL, and that was obviously a fantastic motorcycle, basically because it's a dirt bike with you know, some blinkers. But this bike is handling this absolutely fine. I've taken it on a couple trails like this before. First of all, take a look at that bridge. Gorgeous bridge. But yeah, it's handling it fine. You know, pretty good traction. Obviously, it's not going to be like a true knobby, but you can get knobbies for this tire, or excuse me, for this motorcycle. But they can't do that from the factory because they've got to follow all the local laws and stuff like that. So guys, this thing weighs 344 pounds, I believe. I'll make sure, if that's not correct, I'll leave it in the video on the screen here. But this thing is a blast to ride. You know, a lot of people will say that 344 pounds is a little bit too heavy, and I do agree that if you're going on some technical trails, that will be a little bit much to handle. Not unbearable, but definitely something you have to get used to. Hello, friendly people. But that being said, you know, there are a lot of modifications you can do to this motorcycle to get it down to around like 315. I've seen on a lot of Reddit posts and stuff like that. So one of the first things you can do, and one of the things I will be doing, is putting a new battery in it, because the battery that's in this one is, you know, the classic acid battery, and it's quite heavy. And just by doing the battery mod, I believe you can lose about 8 or 9 pounds off the bike. On top of that, the rear fender, which I'll hop off the bike in a little while and I'll show you guys, but the rear fenders are kind of like bulging on both sides. On the right side, it's for the exhaust. On the left side, it's bulging because there's the battery box with the CDI and the fuses in there. But if you do the battery relocation mod, like I'm talking about, not only do you lose that weight, but it also is a little bit thinner on the back there, because you can put a XR600R fender, which I actually have at home right now. So I just wanted to get out and do a ride on the stock bike and give you guys my thoughts and initial impressions. And I'm gonna take it back home, and once I got some time, I'm gonna make a couple videos on the mods. I've got the battery box, I've also got some mirrors, so a bunch of different things to come for this motorcycle. Yeah guys, I've been wanting one of these for quite some time. I never pulled the trigger, you know, but honestly, if you're in the market and you're interested in a bike like this, man, I definitely check it out. At least test ride it. It's quite eye-opening to see just how capable this machine really is. You know, a lot of people complain about its height, a lot of people complain about its weight, but you know, those are the people that haven't really ridden it, to be honest. You know, if you're a true dual sport rider, you will appreciate this motorcycle. You know, it's not your KTM's, it's not your Husqvarna's, but that being said, it's not meant to be that. You know, it's meant to be a motorcycle that you can rely on, you can beat the crap out of, you know, take on or off-road and have an absolute blast. You know, on top of that, it's meant to be a motorcycle that is easy to fix, easy to ride, and just overall a simple machine. And I think Honda nailed that, to be honest. This bike reminds me a lot of my TW200. Obviously, it's got a lot more power, but the overall simplicity, how long it's being made, the amount of parts that are available for it, really, you know, this bike and the TW are some of the only machines that are still doing that to this day. Kawasaki has their XR650, which is a phenomenal machine, and I have actually had the chance to test ride that briefly at one of the dealerships here in Connecticut. But that being said, you know, it's not really in the same category as this machine, if I'm being honest. This is a much more capable off-road machine. That is a far heavier motorcycle, and you know, that is where, in my opinion, the weight starts to really take effect. You know, 344 pounds is not terrible, but when you're looking at a KLR, it's going to be a lot heavier than this. And you know, for those for those more technical roads and even the fire roads, you know, you'll definitely notice that weight. A KLR will be able to handle the fire roads no problem, obviously, but you might have a little bit more fun with something like this. It's a little more nimble. It feels a little bit more like a dirt bike, and you know, just my opinion, but I'd highly recommend you check out all the bikes if you're in the market for a dual sport. But obviously, I went with the XR650L, and you know, I highly recommend it. So one of the first things I noticed when sitting on this motorcycle was the suspension. The suspension, guys, is actually really good. I was thinking it's gonna lack a little bit in that department, and you know, it may not be up to snuff with something like the CRF450 or your KTM's or Huskies. But that being said, for a 1993, you know, these forks on this motorcycle are really good, to be honest. I haven't had any issues so far. You know, I've only had 180 miles on this thing, but ooh, we got a tree here. But that being said, you know, I really like it, guys. It's a pretty plush feeling ride, not too stiff, not too soft, soaks up the bumps just fine. And what's nice about the suspension is it's fully adjustable, so I think that's a pretty nice bonus for a bike like this. So we're gonna pull over here. We're at New Croton Dam, and I'm just gonna show you how beautiful this is. If you have the opportunity to come over here, I highly recommend checking it out. I'll hop off this bike briefly. So there she is, guys. Fantastic little machine. I love it. But let's take a quick walk over here. It's quite windy today, so the water is going to be a little bit rough. But this is the reservoir. It goes all the way back to where I was originally riding and where I started the video. And as you can tell, you know, people come here and take some pictures. It's a gorgeous spot. Very windy today. So guys, here is the dam. It is absolutely gorgeous. You know, one of the things I wanted to mention briefly is I would have never found this dam without motorcycles. I take my motorcycle a lot of places I would never think of taking my truck. And you know, that being said, obviously the truck has its place, but having a motorcycle is just an absolute great machine to get out, to ride, meet new people, explore new places, you know, find good restaurants, all that stuff. And that's one of the main reasons why I ride, just to find places like this, you know, lay back and really enjoy life. But anyways, guys, you didn't come here for the dam, you came here for the motorcycle, so let's check it out. All right, so getting back on the machine, the motorcycle. Once again, a little bit tall, but just something you gotta get used to. I kind of gotta like fling myself to get this bike upright, but once it's upright, it's ready to go. One thing I've noticed with starting this motorcycle in the morning, it's not quite summertime just yet, so it's a little bit colder during the nights. And one thing is, this is definitely a cold-blooded machine. I have to let this thing idle for probably a good 4 or 5 minutes before I ride it. And the TW200 I did have to let idle as well. But one thing I noticed with this bike is if I don't let it idle long enough, I'll actually stall it, or as soon as I try and go into first gear, it'll kind of just die. So something to consider, not a real big deal, and I'm curious to see how it's going to be during the summer. But just something to keep in mind when you're purchasing this bike. It is a big single-cylinder thumper, so it's going to take a little while to warm up. All right, we're going to go back on that gravel road because I do enjoy riding on that. But yeah, probably one of my favorite things about this bike is the engine. Slow down for this puppy here because puppies like to bark at me. All right. Yeah, this engine is just, it's so torquey. And I'm really excited to see what this thing is going to be able to do when I throw an exhaust and either the Electron carb or a jetting kit on it. So guys, I'm just going to pull over here very briefly just to talk about some of the mods I want to do to this bike. All right, wind's picking up. So, beautiful motorcycle, but there are some things I do want to do. As you can tell, this is the battery box right here. So this holds the battery, the CDI, and the fuse box, or the fuse panel, like I said earlier. Little helmet lock here. But so as you can tell, it kind of bulges out. And I've seen a lot of people do the XR600R fender once they move the battery under the seat. So I purchased that fender, and that's my goal for this bike. Just to, clean it up. I still want to go with the retro vibe, but I do want it to be a little more sleek. I want to try and lose a little bit of weight if I can. So I think the battery will help. I'm probably going to be removing these and maybe doing some sort of blinker over here. Not quite sure yet. I have risers for this motorcycle. They're just the Pro Taper risers I got off Amazon. I have the Pro Taper bars as well as the new grips and all that, so that will be in a future video. Probably going to do wraparound handguards because, like I said, I have dropped this bike, and on this side it messed up the lever just a little bit. You probably won't even be able to tell. It's a little scratched. Not a big deal. This bike is absolutely bulletproof, so you're gonna have basically no issues when you drop it. The only thing I would recommend doing, which I have not done yet, but as soon as I dropped it, I thought about it immediately, is putting some sort of protective cover over here on the case. These cases are magnesium, and they tend to break quite easily when you drop the motorcycle. This is probably the only downfall to this bike that I can really think of, is when you drop it, this lever will go and hit the case, and if you drop it hard enough, it could potentially crack the case, which will not be a fun day. So I went to Home Depot, I got some JB Weld, and I also got a little piece of metal that I'm going to cut out JB Weld onto the case, and it should be good after that. I think you can also get case savers online, but I figured I'd do it myself, make it a little more fun, make it into a little project. One other thing I was thinking about doing is some sort of auxiliary lighting. I do have a LED bulb for this motorcycle, but I was thinking about putting little Baja pods or something like that on the front, just for when I'm riding out here at night, be able to see a lot better. If you guys have anything you want to see or have any questions, definitely let me know in the comments. I'm all ears. I love hearing what you guys have to say. Oh, of course, I did get the XR only block off emissions kit, or whatever it's called. You'll be seeing a video on that as well, getting rid of all this stuff, open the bike up a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that's really what I have for it so far. So let's hop back on this thing and continue down the trail. Whoo! Wind is picking up. All right. Oh, and I guess one thing I didn't mention just now is I do plan on getting a Electron carb. I've heard really good things about those carburetors. And I also plan on doing some sort of a pipe. Not sure what pipe yet. I'm thinking FMF. but we'll see. Also, another thing is the fuel capacity on this motorcycle is not the best. I was able to get around 90 miles to the tank, I want to say. Maybe it was a little more than that, but that's not too great, especially if you want to go out exploring. So just something to consider. I think I'm gonna get the IMS 4.0 gallon tank. It'll just extend my range just a little bit. I don't want anything too cumbersome because I do want to keep this thing lightweight. and agile, and I think the IMS will be a perfect fit for that. Really excited to see what a pipe and Electron car will do to this, because stock, it's not bad for off-road. On-road, you know, it's maybe a hair lacking, but it'll do 60 miles an hour, 65, no problem. If you live near, you know, some roads that the speed limit's 70 or 75, you might need to consider re-gearing it, but, you know, it's not bad. Beautiful road over here. The shocks are absorbing those bumps pretty well, actually. So yeah, guys, I'm super happy I purchased this motorcycle. This thing is going to be a blast to mod. And you know, just an overall fun bike to own. So I'll pull over here one more time and just go over some of the specs on the bike for you guys. One thing I noticed, and I don't know if it's changed as of today, but Honda has not really put any pictures of this bike on their website. You know, they have like their basic white background picture, but they don't have any pictures of the bike like in action, you know, on dirt or anything like that. If you go to the 2021 model, it does have that, but this one does not. So not really sure why that is. I don't know if it's just because it's so new or what the deal is, but we're under the highway now, so hopefully you guys will be able to hear me. But let's just run through some specs real quick. Alright guys, so this thing has a 644cc air-cooled engine. It's probably the star of the show on this motorcycle if you ask most people. It's got a 5-speed transmission. It does come with a O-ring chain, and that's a pretty nice feature. You know, those O-ring chains do tend to last a little bit longer, so that's pretty nice of Honda to include that from the factory. So Honda has included 11.6 inches of travel on these Showa forks here on the front. As you can tell, they're absolutely massive. One thing a lot of people tend to say is when riding on more technical terrain, something to consider is how low these forks go. I don't know if they sell some sort of protector or something, but something to consider so you don't, you know, ram into rocks or anything like that. And taking a look at the rear shock, I don't know if you'll be able to see it behind the exhaust, but you will have 11 inches of travel as well as adjustability on that as well. So overall, a pretty nice machine. You can really dial it in just to, you know, exactly the type of riding that you do, your weight and stuff like that. So a couple other specs on this bike, you are looking at a 37-inch seat height, and comparing that to something like the XR650RL, it does feel quite a bit taller, and that is because of how wide the bike is. Not that it's ridiculously wide, but it's definitely wider than a modern, you know, dirt bike. It has 13 inches of ground clearance, which is plenty for almost everybody. I can't think of a reason why you need more than that. Like I said, it's got a small gas tank, 2.8 gallons. That does include a 0.6 gallon reserve, so keep that in mind if you're planning on going on longer trips. And also, as far as warranty, this does have a 1-year transferable warranty, so that is nice to know that Honda obviously backs up their products. But as most of you know, Honda is a very reliable and well-known company, and you know, the XR650L is absolutely no exception. A couple nice features that Honda included. Obviously, you do have some handguards. For serious off-roading, I'd probably swap those out for something that wraps around and has a little more protection, but it is nice that Honda included that from the factory. Looking at the back here, as you can tell, it comes with a tool bag, nice black tool bag to match the tank, or excuse me, the seat there. But as you can tell, I have my Garmin in there right now, but it's pretty spacious. You can definitely fit quite a bit of tools. You know, if you need a little snack, if you want to put a water bottle, you can probably fit that in here as well. You can also fit a med kit or, you know, really whatever you want. It's pretty nice that they include that. So taking a look at the foot pegs here, I do plan on putting some IMS foot pegs on here because these are quite small, and after a while they tend to get a little bit uncomfortable, but just little things here and there. So taking a look on this side as well, once again you have the small foot peg. This is all going to be removed. This is all the emission stuff that nobody wants on their motorcycles because it just makes it run like crap. As you can see, here is the fuel petcock switch, so you have your on, off, and reserve. So very simple. This bike carries its oil in the frame, which is pretty unique. Not a lot of motorcycles have that anymore. Alright guys, well, we're making our way back out, heading to the main roads again, but I hope you guys liked today's video. Just a little riding, a little review of the XR650. My final impressions, and I know I've repeated myself quite a bit in this video, but the engine is definitely the selling point on this motorcycle. It is reliable, it's torquey, it's fun. The motorcycle is not that heavy. A lot of people are complaining about its weight. And don't get me wrong, on trails, yeah, it would probably be a little bit heavy, especially if you have to pick it up every once in a while. But, you know, that's not what this bike is meant to be. It's meant to be a dual sport motorcycle, and I think it nails that. In my opinion, the dual sport market has gone a little bit too far from what it should be. I think there's too many electronics on today's bikes. And don't get me wrong, those bikes are, you know, they're phenomenal bikes out there. But for someone who really wants to get out and ride, not have to worry about their machine, not have to worry about electronics, you know, it's hard to beat an XR650. There's a couple bikes left that are like this, but not many. If you guys are in the area of a Honda dealership and they've got one of these in stock, if you can, definitely take it for a ride. I think you'd be surprised with how capable this machine really is. So now that we're back on the road, you guys will be able to see how this bike performs on road. With the 5 gears, this bike will be able to cruise 45, 55, 65, no problem. Once you start getting, you know, 70, 75 miles an hour, the engine starts working a little bit, not too bad. But if you plan on doing a lot of riding with this motorcycle at higher speeds like that, you might want to consider doing a re-gearing on the rear sprocket. But you know, this bike is more than capable. The engine's more than capable of putting down some highway miles. People have taken these bikes all around the world, so there's no excuse why, you know, someone can't take it on the highway for a couple miles. Yeah guys, riding this bike on the road, super smooth, super fun. Definitely a light motorcycle for the road, much lighter than my desert sled. Beautiful day, a little overcast, but I want to say it's probably like 55, 65 degrees, something like that. And it's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I've taken this bike to and from work basically every day this week, except for the 2 days that it did rain. And, you know, this bike's been great. I haven't had any issues with it starting up. I haven't had any issues with any of that. You know, I fueled it up, I think, twice now. And it's about, I don't know, well, with today's gas prices, it's a little more, but it's around $10, $12 to fill up, so not too bad. And one thing is, you know, it does have that 5-gear transmission, and for my type of riding, it's no problem at all. On the TW200, the 5-gear transmission definitely was its weak side. Obviously, the engine didn't put out that much power, and not having a 6-gear, the engine was screaming once you got up past, you know, 55, 60. But this bike will handle the highway speeds much better. And it's actually a little more comfortable on road with that extra weight. You're not getting blown around as much on a day like today where it's very windy. You know, I'm pretty planted, and I don't really have any complaints. So guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I was able to answer any of your questions or concerns. But if I didn't, make sure to throw them in the comment section down below. You can also check me out at Mostromoto on Instagram, where I'll be posting pictures of this bike, as well as my other motorcycles that I have. But yeah guys, there are plenty of modifications to come for this motorcycle, so stay tuned. But other than that, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, ride safe.